through this antigenic variation, it protects these pathogens from the host immune system. Now, the next step and the final step of the microbial mechanism of pathogenesis is damage to the host, or in a simple word, we can say that infection or disease. The final step where organism will damage to the host. So this damage, it can be also caused by producing some enzymes, some other virulence factors. So for example, leucocidins. After successfully evading the host defense mechanism, now the organism is ready to execute some virulence factors, and leucocidins is one of them. So leuco means white cell and cidin means to kill. So to kill the white cells. So these are virulence factors, and also they are exotoxins produced by many bacteria including streptococci and staphylococci. So they produce the leucocidins. These toxins destroy the white blood cells like neutrophils and macrophages. So these neutrophils and macrophages, they are very important because they play the role as a phagocytic cell. They can effectively phagocyte the different pathogens. So the leucocidin types of virulence factors, these are toxins and they can destroy the WBC cells. And these are most effective when released by the microbes that have been engulfed by phagocytes. So this is very important thing. We know that the microbes and the phagocytic cells, they engulf the microorganisms. After engulfment, it is possible that within the phagocytes some microorganism can release these leucocidins. So they are more effective when they are released by microorganisms that have been engulfed by phagocytes. The leucocidins, they damage the cytoplasmic membrane of the phagocyte, and as a result they are causing the contents of the cell to leak out. So there will be outpouring of the contents of the cell, and this results into the cell death. So as a result of membrane damage. So they are anti-phagocytic factors. They also prevents the phagocytosis. They results in reduction in number of WBC in certain diseases. So as we know that they are able to attack on the neutrophils and other white blood cells. So finally it results into the reduction in the number of white blood cells in certain diseases. Then after leucocidins, the hemolysins, another virulence factors. So they are exotoxins and also they act as enzymes. The exotoxins having enzymatic properties. So these hemolysins, they were first discovered in cultures of bacteria grown on the blood agar plates, and their action, as the name suggests, hemolysins, their action is to lyse the red blood cells. So they lyse the RBCs. So two types of hemolysins they are identified. One is alpha hemolysins and second is beta hemolysins. So alpha hemolysins, they hemolyze the red blood cells. Particularly they break down the hemoglobin and produce the greenish ring around the colonies. But here the hemolysis of the red blood cells is partial. There is no complete hemolysis of the red blood cells, and as a result of this there is a greenish ring around the colonies. So zone, there is a greenish zone observed around the colonies. So alpha hemolysins, they are responsible for partial hemolysis of RBCs. Second is beta hemolysins. They also hemolyze the red blood cells, but here the hemolysis is a complete type. They completely break down hemoglobin and they leave a clear ring around the colonies. So here zone is very clear. So two types of hemolysins, alpha hemolysins and beta hemolysins. Now this alpha and beta hemolysis pattern is very important. The pattern of this hemolysis is useful to identify bacteria and to determine their degree of pathogenicity, to determine their virulence. It is very useful to study the pattern of this hemolysis. For example, Streptococci and Staphylococci, they both produce different hemolysins that are helpful for their identification. So, through the hemolysis, there is a release of iron from hemoglobin molecule, the RBCs. And this iron is critical element for the growth of all cells, that is the cells of the host as well as also for the microorganisms. Now the bacteria that can produce hemolysins can grow better than the bacteria that do not produce such enzymes, because they will get the iron through the hemoglobin and they will grow better. So this is very important. So those bacteria who produce the hemolysins, they will grow better. So these hemolysins, they can also damage the white blood cells. So this is also another important property. Remember that we are discussing the point that is damage to the host cells. So each and every step here, it is very important. So red blood cells can be damaged by hemolysins, and also sometimes they can also damage the white blood cells. Alpha hemolysins, they also damage the smooth muscles and they kill the skin cells. Now these hemolysins, they are named after the bacteria producing it. So generally they are called as hemolysins, but now various bacteria, they can produce the same component, and that's why their nomenclature is different. For example, so it depends on the host producing it. For example, hemolysins, they are referred as streptolysin if they are produced by streptococci. They are referred as staphylolysin if they are produced by staphylococci. They are referred as pneumolysin if they are produced by Diplococcus pneumonia. They are referred as titanolysin if produced by Clostridium tetani. So the name here, it's based on the organism producing it. So for example, certain streptococci, they produce two distinct soluble hemolysins. In case of streptococci, two different hemolysins that are soluble will be observed. First is streptolysin O, SLO. So O here, it stands for oxygen. Streptolysin O, it is oxygen labile. This streptolysin O, it is very sensitive to oxygen, and in presence of oxygen it will not be active. So it's only active in the reduced form, and it is oxygen labile. Second hemolysin in streptococci is streptolysin S. Here S stands for stable, oxygen stable. So streptolysin O is oxygen labile and streptolysin S is oxygen stable. Certain streptococci, they produce only streptolysin O, while others, they secrete only streptolysin S. Now most members of the group A streptococci, they produce the both types of streptolysin. So group A streptococci, it is a group of streptococci that is responsible for various diseases, and they are generally they belong to the beta hemolytic type of streptococci. Now after hemolysins, some pathogens, they can also produce hydrogen peroxide and ammonia. For example, in case of mycoplasma and ureaplasma, they adhere firmly to the epithelial tissues of the respiratory or urinary tract, and they excrete some toxic byproducts through their metabolic activity. For example, H2O2 and ammonia. Now this hydrogen peroxide and ammonia, they accumulate locally to high concentration, and as a result of their accumulation they can damage the epithelial cells of the respiratory or urogenital tract. So this is another mechanism that can be employed by the pathogens to damage the host, that is production of harmful metabolic byproducts like hydrogen peroxide and ammonia. Now, so far we have discussed the damage caused to the host cells by producing some virulence factors and producing some enzymes. Now, the damage to the host cells is also can be done by using some other mechanisms. For example, here we will see one example of such mechanism is damage to the host cell using the host nutrients. Okay, so using the host nutrients also a damage to the host cells can be done. So here we will discuss the example of siderophores. So siderophores, they are nothing but the microbial iron chelators. So what are siderophores? So they chelates the microbial iron. They form a complex with the iron. So iron, it is an essential nutrient that is required both by host cells and pathogen. So host as well as microbes, they compete for the available iron. So now this iron, if it is present in the ferrous form, then it is soluble. And under aerobic condition, this iron is present in the ferric form, which is insoluble. So these facts, they are very important. In anaerobic condition, the ferrous form of the iron predominates and it is soluble in nature, but in aerobic condition iron is present in ferric form, which is insoluble. Now the pathogens, they will produce some iron binding compounds called as siderophores, that is iron chelators, which solubilizes the insoluble ferric iron and help the bacteria to reduce it to ferrous form. So remember that in order to get this iron as a nutrient, it should be in a ferrous state, that is in the soluble state. So what pathogens do? They produce siderophores, and which solubilizes the insoluble ferric iron and reduce it to the ferrous form. Now host being aerobic, it also needs to produce some iron binding compounds in order to convert the insoluble iron into soluble form. So host also produces such iron binding compounds and they are called as lactoferrin and transferrin. In case of pathogen, there is a siderophore. In case of host, there is a lactoferrin and transferrin. So within the host, there is a high competition between the host and pathogens for the available iron. Microbes having capacity to produce the siderophores are more virulent than the microbes not producing it. So here we can see that the reaction or the mechanism, in the ferric state the iron is insoluble and it should be converted into ferrous state in order to get in the soluble form. So siderophores and lactoferrin both can do this, but if the pathogen is able to produce the siderophores in a large quantity and if the number of pathogens are more, then it will result in the high chelation of the iron by the siderophores. Now the iron will not be available for the host cell, and as a result of the iron deficiency, it will result into the damage to the host cell. So this is another crucial mechanism by which host cell can be damaged by the pathogen. So in this video lecture, we have discussed about the microbial mechanism of pathogenesis. So there are various steps for organism to carry out the pathogenesis. So we have discussed each and every step of the microbial mechanism of pathogenesis. So here Thank you.